Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Joree Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Joree is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Joree.
Hi, and welcome back to Journey Forward with Joree Rose. Thanks for tuning in today. So as I'm recording this is the day of the 4th of July, so happy Independence Day, even though by the time you guys hear this, it'll be a couple days later. I just wanted to give you context of what the day is because I'm feeling the need to just expand some thoughts and share them with you guys, and this will be kind of a different podcast episode than some of my others, more of just a free association of some of my thoughts, more of some musings, and just planting seeds for you guys to get some thoughts of your own flowing and giving you the opportunity for some self-reflection on what does freedom mean to you? And, I always seem to take this holiday, while it is a holiday and celebration of our country, I like to look at it from the other perspective of personal freedom and personal independence. And maybe that's because that's something that I've struggled with almost my whole life. And I think there's so many different ways that we can celebrate these words and these meanings and these intentions. So I hope that over the next 20 minutes of this podcast that you'll gain some insight into what does this mean for you? And I know that this is something that I've struggled with so much in my life because it didn't feel like something I was raised to have. I don't know what the right word is, raised to have a desire for independence and didn't really feel like I had a lot of personal freedoms. And this isn't, a complete judgment on my growing up or a negative on that. It's more of just what our family paradigm was. And I was raised to believe that being alone was bad and that I was never given time to be by myself. And as a young child, I interpreted that to mean I shouldn't be alone, which therefore meant I should not be independent, that to be dependent and to keep your relationships tight and close is what kept you safe. So the converse of that was that independence was scary and there was a big unknown and I shouldn't do that. And, there was a variety of reasons of why that was the dynamic in my family and just, again, the paradigm that I grew up with. But it was so pervasive. And it filtered into different areas of my life of not knowing how to be independent, not knowing how to be alone. And it wasn't just a physical thing, it was even independent of my thoughts and what does personal freedoms mean? And as I've gotten older, to be able to integrate, well, what does that mean in terms of partnerships and close relationships and in romantic relationships, how to balance independence and freedom and autonomy with dependence and love and security and safety. So this is where I'm at in thinking about this today. So I invite you to take a moment and just think for yourself, what does independence mean to you? Is it having the ability to go do things on your own? Is it confidence? Is it a vision of maybe someone you saw who you could see who was able to just kind of float through their world, but yet at the same time, we don't want to be too independent because our lives are built around love and connection and relationship. And so what is the right balance for independence within relationships? What is the right balance to give our children as they're growing up in a world that seemingly seems unsafe or, dangerous for kids to go out and be on their own. And we want to hold on so tight and keep them safe and secure. But what is that compromise for them? So I don't have any of the answers. Today, I'm just going to be asking a lot of questions. And, I'm curious for you to, as I ask these questions, reflect upon your own process and growth of your childhood into adulthood, into if you're parents, into raising children, to what you thought your needs were for independence and freedom growing up, to what are you giving your own kids, to, again, being in relationship. What does it mean to have freedom and autonomy and independence, when yet the very definition of a lot of relationships is to have dependence and to be a little bit more enmeshed in our ways of being. So I apologize if this at all sounds like negatives, because they're really, really not. I'm not saying one is better than another. I'm not saying we should strive for dependence versus independence or vice versa. It's really just my free association. So thank you for indulging me in allowing these thoughts to just kind of flow out my mouth without, kind of restricting them too much. When I was growing up, I'm sure my mom would have told you that I was really independent, and I'm sure she would have said that I definitely had my own mind and I spoke my own mind. And yet I'm not sure I would fully agree with that statement. I didn't feel free to be independent. And like I said, I was raised to believe that being alone was bad. So it's really taken me a long time to understand freedom and independence and how to separate this out from your family or your religion or expectations that have been placed on you. Because there's so much that can make us feel bad for wanting to be independent, like it's a betrayal to those we love. And yet I think about having a healthy balance within it all. So far I've just free associated these thoughts on independence and autonomy, but I think there's a whole nother layer of this too. It's what about freedom from your thoughts, freedom in your own mind? Because, as a marriage and family therapist, and as just a human being who experiences it myself, we all get so stuck and so caught up in our thoughts and our emotions and our judgments and our inner critic and the feelings of unworthiness and insecurity. And so when I think about personal freedom, I also think about the freedom of all of those shackles that hold us back from really just living fully and living freely in this authentic body and authentic mind and going through our path in a way that feels unrestricted. And, we as a culture, in an American culture, have so much anxiety and so much stress and depression and body image issues and self-worth and bad habits and people being stuck in unhealthy relationships or jobs that they hate, feeling like there's so many shoulds that rule our life. So again, as I consider this question of independence, it's also where are you free to make the choice of your shoulds and what's keeping you held to those shoulds and those expectations? Is it fear? Is it the unknown? Is it and not knowing how to do something different, even though you're so desperately not happy with where you're at? And what would you need to make a change? What would you need to feel more independent and free from those things that are holding you back? And then I can go further and say, what about the freedom in how you spend your time? Whether it's your job or, the activities that you do, or I keep going back to this idea of just what's the shoulds or what's expected of you. And I think a lot of these questions come up for me that I literally just got back a couple of days ago from traveling in Europe for an entire month. I was in a total of 5 countries. I was in Switzerland and Italy and Israel and France and the Netherlands. And such an amazing experience to compare different cultures and different freedoms and what we consider as cultural norms or safety, and even just how we raise our kids. And I had so many insights that I wanted to be able to bring back home and integrate, and yet there's not necessarily the freedom to do that here, just based on we live in a different place. And so some of the questions that came up for me was, gosh, I don't even know where to begin. Freedom in how we spend our day. As an entrepreneur, there's that word should again, I should be able to have the freedom to structure my day in which I like. And yet I find that I can't even get to the gym because I'm too busy. And then I'm curious with myself because I'm the one who set up my own schedule. So why can't I create it in the way that I want? Why aren't I free to have an hour to get to the gym at least a couple of days a week? And where did I get this idea that I had to keep doing and doing and doing? And being in Europe and seeing a different lifestyle and seeing such freedom of leisure in people's day, and that's valued and that's not looked at as wasting time. I was amazed at the freedom in which just to be is accepted. And that's something that I really want to actively work on integrating into my schedule and into my home and into my life and shift my work schedule around that. To be able to feel free within my day and not feel like I'm being lazy if I go outside and lay in my hammock and read a book, but actually consider that healthy for my self-care and my soul care and my overall mental and physical and emotional health. One of the things that I did when I traveled, I was visiting an old friend in Switzerland, and she's got young kids, 10 and 12 years old, and the freedom in which these kids have to be independent is something that we here in America, at least where I live in the suburbs of Northern California, don't have for our kids. You know, the freedom to say, you know, you can get to school completely on your own using public transportation, or being able to stay home by yourself because it's safe, and you know, having just the freedom to get around on our own is not something that we have as a infrastructure in our society, and it makes it so limiting and I think therefore confining to learning how to stretch our legs and our freedom and test that confidence in capabilities that we can do stuff on our own. And then there's, you know, freedom and safety and independence on a whole different level. When it comes to just feeling safe in another country. For example, I visited Israel for the first time, and at 41 years old, my whole life that I had ever thought about going to Israel, I had always been really scared, thinking it's really unsafe. And I think that's such a common perception. Of course, you're in the Middle East, and yes, there's absolutely times when it is not safe, but fundamentally, I have actually never felt more safe, almost even than at home. And this brings up, you know, so many different levels of questions about gun safety. And in Israel, guns are a part of life, but they are in a different way than we have here in America. And the guns are there to protect the country, not the individual. And they're respected and they're trained to have everyone having to have been in the Israeli army. And what does that mean for safety and independence? And, you know, if our country felt safe in a different way, would I feel more comfortable sending my kids out on their own on public transportation? So again, these aren't necessarily judgments. These are all questions that I'm just raising and being curious about and free associating around this idea of independence and freedom and autonomy. And where in our life do we get that? What does that look like? And at what point maybe does that not work for you at some point if you're feeling so stuck? One other thing I did want to share about the travel that really got me fascinated about this idea of freedom was actually I had downloaded some shows onto my iPad, one of which, as a little aside, the TV show from 1994, My So-Called Life, it was only out for one season. And if you're anywhere around my age, you might remember it with Claire Danes and Jared Leto as the handsome Jordan Catalano. But it was only one season did it come out. And I've gotten about halfway through the season of watching it while I was gone. And it is an amazing show. It holds up today as good as it did 25 years ago. So just as an aside, it's on Apple TV. Download it. It is so worth it. Episode 3 was all about a gun going off in the school. It is as relevant today as ever. Anyhow, in the couple beginning episodes, the Claire Danes character is reading Diary of Anne Frank. And her character not Anne Frank, the Claire Danes character, is someone who feels really trapped and really stuck in her life. She does not feel free to be herself and her family, and she's trying to figure that out with her friends of what does her own independence and freedom and autonomy look like. And there's a scene where a teacher is asking about what she thinks about the Diary of Anne Frank book. And Claire Danes responds by saying she's jealous of Anne Frank. And the teacher gets really offended, like, how could you even say that? And part of what her character says is, well, Anne Frank was free. And again, the teacher got really offended, saying, how could you even make that association? But the response was that in her confinement, in her diary, she was finally free to be herself. And she was trapped in this annex with the boy that she had a crush on, and she had the freedom to just be her. And it's such a paradox, right? And sometimes at, moments where we feel really confined, we do have other freedoms inside our mind. So sometimes where our thoughts can be the thing that hold us back from feeling free, at other times in our own mind, we can be exactly who we want to be. And we can say what we want to say, and we can feel what we want to feel without judgment. And I remember the single pinpointed moment when I recall breaking free from fully thinking on my own about how I felt about something separate from my mom. This was many years ago, 2013. I was flying home from New York. Actually, I was flying home from the retreat when I broke the board on the first time, that Dan Millman retreat. And my plane was delayed about 5 hours. And maybe I've shared this story before on previous episodes. So if I have, I apologize. And the plane was delayed about 5 hours, and I realized at almost 5 hours into the delay, I should probably call my mom and tell her that I was delayed. She was someone who worried a lot, so she would have expected me to be landing soon, and here I hadn't even taken off yet. So I tell her we've been sitting on the tarmac for 5 hours. There had been a plane that had a hard landing at a nearby airport, so all the planes were being diverted, plus there was a storm. Like, it was kind of a perfect combination of issues for the airport. So she says to me, "Oh my God, you must be so frustrated." And it was such a simple statement. And it was one that, of course I would be frustrated. This was a frustrating situation. However, I realized in that moment that my mom had been telling me how to feel. And this is so subtle. And this isn't necessarily a judgment on her. It was just a fact that she was saying, "Oh my God, you must be so frustrated." And I realized how much of my life I had aligned myself with how she thought or felt to believe what I thought or felt. And something just clicked inside of me, and I broke free from that dynamic. And I said to her, "No, Mom, it is a frustrating situation, but I'm fine. I wasn't annoyed. I wasn't angry. I wasn't frustrated. I wasn't nervous." And it was so subtle, but it was the first time I can remember being independent of thought from what she had felt or thought. And I think I was 36 years old. And it was a huge awareness for me. Actually, I think I was only 35. It was a huge awareness for me in just how subtle and just how powerful we can be influenced by other people's feelings or thoughts, and not even know how to be independent to think about how we feel about something on our own and then be able to actually name it. So again, I'm kind of just rambling about all different aspects of independence and freedom and autonomy and what that looks like for you. But this has been such a powerful theme in my life over recent years. And as a therapist, something that I work with a lot of my clients on, trying to understand and figure out, because these patterns are powerful. And when we don't feel free, when we feel stuck, when we feel trapped, or we feel like we have no choices and we're being, running by those shoulds or those expectations, we often don't know how to get out. So I've actually created a framework that I think is really helpful, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about it, but I'm also going to offer it to you and let you know how to get access to it should you want to go through the steps yourself, so you can gain your own greater independence or freedom or autonomy from whatever it is that's holding you back. So I call this the Get Unstuck, Stay Unstuck, Be Happy Guide. And there's 6 steps to this. And the first one is to really name and acknowledge what's going on for you right now, to have an ability to connect with and observe the most pressing struggles, concerns, challenges, issues. What are you facing right now that's really keeping you stuck? And so in this guide, I give a list of about 30 as starters for you to take a look at, things that actually I think I've experienced every single one of these on this list. So that's partly why I had such an easy time coming up with it. But different areas of life in which we can feel stuck, whether it's in your relationship, you want more meaning out of your life, you don't know who you are outside of your roles, your relationship lacks depth, you're not sure what brings you joy, you're anxious, you're depressed, you're unhappy with your weight, nothing's ever changing and you're feeling pessimistic, or parenting is really hard, you're afraid you're screwing up your kids. Whatever it is, there's, many areas in our lives in which we feel stuck. So whether you choose to align with one of the ones that I've listed, or just sitting and reflecting on the top areas in which you feel you're stuck. And when you can look at a greater depth of where you're stuck and what's holding you back, understand that this takes a lot of courage. This takes a lot of vulnerability to delve into your pain points. But when you do, then you can start to become more free. And then you will get to be where you want in your life. And so, that which we resist persists. So that means the more we focus on the negative, the bigger that negative becomes. And it's a lot easier to stay stuck and complain than it is to get out of those patterns. So through the process of this first step of writing down and really observing the areas in your life in which you're stuck and unhappy and needing to create change around, the first thing to do after we can do that is just observe the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations in your body as you look at this list. And, just kind of noticing. And I have 3 words that I always talk about when practicing mindfulness: awareness, attention, intention. So it's awareness of what's arising within us, those thoughts, emotions, sensations, distractions, paying attention to our typical habits and patterns and how we respond to whatever's arising, and then having intention to act intentionally, to say no other way, but to have intentions to know why we're doing what we're doing, to get out of autopilot, to get out of that habitual responses, and to be more intentional in how you respond to whatever's arising. So looking at your 5 statements, or maybe you've written a couple of down, but considering those areas in your life in which you're stuck, the next step after we can really have that awareness of what's going on in our lives, of where we need more independence or freedom around, is to just notice, without judgment, but with self-compassion, emotions that you feel in your body when observing this list, or when you're connecting with these things in your life. And, studies show that if we can name what's arising, that our brain actually slows down a reaction to it. So if you're feeling anxious, if you just say, wow, I'm noticing anxiety as I look at this list, or I'm noticing my heart start to race, or I'm feeling a pit in my stomach, or I'm feeling sad. When you can name, and if you want, write down what you're observing and what you're noticing, you start to distance yourself a little bit more from the emotion. You're in the observer mode rather than being in the middle of it. And your brain's going to slow down the reaction to it, because as soon as you've named it, you've quieted the amygdala, which is the emotional alarm to the brain. So it's not going to have the same emotional charge. So that's the next step, is just notice these areas in your life in which you're stuck. Notice the emotions coming up with it, naming those emotions. The third step is to then notice the thoughts or the mindsets that come up around it. Maybe this is where your shoulds or your old stories are popping up. Things like, oh, things will never change. Why even bother? This is just who I am, or this is just who my family is, or I'm not worthy or capable of deserving to be happier, or I'm too afraid. These are just thoughts. These are stories. These are mindsets. And again, if we can write those down or really become clear on those thoughts or mindsets and observe them rather than necessarily just believe them. If we can observe them, create the distance between them, then we have the ability to have intention around it of, do I actually believe that, right? Just because you have the thought does not mean you have to believe it. Just because it's been a mindset or a habit does not mean you have to continue it. So just to recap, the first step was naming what's going on in our life that we're feeling stuck or unhappy with. The second step was noticing the emotions arising as we look at that list. The third step was noticing the thoughts and naming those as well and just observing them. Now, the fourth step, this is the mindfulness practice of where we continue to breathe. If we can notice these thoughts and emotions maybe charging us, and then we come back to our breath, then we're calming the brain, we're calming the body, we're slowing down a habitual reaction to those triggers of where we're feeling stuck or unhappy. And the more you can connect with your breath and use it to your benefit to breathe in all that nourishes and heals you, to breathe out all that is spent, to breathe in light and love, and to breathe out darkness and, just whatever negative energy is in your body. I know it's woo-woo, but believe me, it works. And we can get re-triggered. So you might, be going through this process of noticing where you're stuck and naming the emotions, naming the thoughts, coming back to your breath. And you might be in that cycle of breathing. And then all of a sudden, wham, those emotions take over again. Those thoughts take over again. So that's an ongoing process. We don't just do it once and it's done. I mean, that's the practice to keep coming back to. So the next thing is really an interesting step in this framework. And this is where I think the key into creating lasting change and ultimately creating your long-term happiness really comes into play. And that is to see if you can uncover in whatever area in which you're stuck. The reason you're stuck or you're unhappy is because there's some value of yours that is in violation. Meaning, if let's say you're feeling stuck or unhappy with your body or with your weight. So let's say the statement is, I'm unhappy with my weight and it's making me feel bad about myself. Well, the value that is behind that statement is, I value my health. I value feeling a positive connection to my body. I value taking care of my body. Okay, let me give you another example. If let's say one of your challenges you're dealing with is, and this, especially moms have a hard time with this one, I feel selfish when I take time away from my family or loved ones to do something just for me. Well, the value is behind that statement is you're really saying, I value caring for others as well as honoring time for myself. Maybe the challenge or struggle in your life is I'm constantly feeling stressed or anxious. So what would the value be behind that? Well, the value behind being stuck in anxiety is I value being at peace in my body. Or maybe you're feeling stuck in a relationship in which there's a lot of fighting and there's tension. And the value is I value effective communication. I value being heard. So hopefully you can hear the reframe there because, again, our minds are drawn to the negative. So the more we focus on the negative, the more we stay in the negative. But unfortunately, that does not get us out of the pattern of reacting to that negativity. It only delves us in further into that spiral. But if we can see, how can I look at this in a different way, a way in which I can focus on it in a different way that actually has a positive spin to it? Because if you uncover your values behind where you're stuck and you make the intention to connect with the value versus the connecting with why you're stuck, studies show that when you're values driven, you actually will make lasting long-term change. So the last step of this process is to be able to really step into your values and set intentions with those values. Make those your moment-to-moment value-driven intentions that's attainable, that you can lead yourself out of where you're stuck towards where you want to be free, towards what will bring you greater independence, whether it's of your mind or in your body or in your relationships or in your career path or in your parenting or just simply in relation to yourself. So, an example of how to put this into play. I'm sure I've shared before that I have had a struggle with my body, and connection with my weight has always been in fluctuation. And like many women, I have always had that, if I could just lose 5 more pounds, I'll be happier. And even though I've been practicing these tools, there are moments where, yes, I still get stuck in that. So if I can notice I'm stuck in that thought and it's preventing me from feeling free to engage in whether it's a meal out or an activity out, so I can notice the emotion as it comes up. Wow, I'm feeling really bad about myself right now. Okay, let me just notice that I'm putting some negativity towards my body. The thoughts that I can have associated with that are, it'll never change. It's just the way it is. Okay, let me just observe and notice that habit come up. All right, now that I've done that, let me breathe. Let me take a moment to pause. Let me slow down and tap back into the value set. What's the value behind me being caught up in wanting to lose an extra 5 pounds? Well, the value is I really value feeling comfortable in my own skin. I value feeling strong. I value feeling healthy. So now my intention based on that value is my healthy food choices can be in alignment with I want to feel strong or I want to feel healthy versus acting out of a mindset of I want to lose 5 pounds. There are 2 totally different approaches to how to deal with what we've got going on. And I told you, I just got back from Europe for a month, and I honestly was so nervous about gaining weight while I was there. And I love to eat and I love to travel via food and culture. And I took cooking classes in Italy. I took a cooking class in Jerusalem. And ironically, I actually ended up losing weight. And I know everyone says, but you walk so much in Europe. And yes, that's true. But I also think partly why I lost some weight while I was there, because I ate what I wanted, but I stopped judging myself. And I really think our mind and our energy has so much power within our bodies that I think I gave myself greater permission to have a different relationship to food while I was there than I normally do. So I'm really curious to play this out at home and to really shift a relationship to the food I'm eating and to how I feel about it and to see how it shows up in my body, because I think the mind-body connection is undoubtedly huge. And I think our thoughts produce so much negative energy that we retain a lot of things inside our bodies. So food for thought on that one. So I know I've just kind of rambled on so many different things in this episode, but really the overall crux is your own personal independence from what's not working for you, your own freedom to be who you are, to find whatever that autonomy looks like to you, and to have a set of tools to help get you unstuck so you can live more freely, so you can live more fully, so you can live more authentically, and ultimately you can be happy. And not just momentary happiness, and I'm talking long-term, lasting, authentic, in alignment, mind, body, spirit, relationships, parenting, your career, your relationship to yourself, your family, your friends, surrounding yourself with that alignment to bring you the joy, to make you feel that you're not stuck, to make you feel that you are living fully and freely in who you want to be. And so on this Independence Day, this is what I offer to you. This is what I would love for you to take the steps towards. And if you want to get access to this framework that I just shared, and I know it's kind of hard conceptually just to take notes or listen to it as I describe it, because there's a lot more in depth to it than what I just went through. If you'd like access to this, please visit my website. It's joreerose.com, JoreeRose.com. And there's a set of tools that you can find on the website, and it is the Get Unstuck Guide. So if you scroll down to tools, you'll see where it says free Get Unstuck Guide, and you can download that for free. And this framework is actually going to be a huge part of what I'm going to be doing on my 2 retreats that I have coming up in September and October, which is the Journey Forward to Self-Compassion at the amazing Marival Resorts. I only have a couple of spots left. I think I've got 3 left for October, which is at the Marival Resort in Austin, Texas, which is brand new, and I'm so excited to go to. And I think I've got 4 spots left for Marival in Tucson, which is in September. All of that information is also you can find on my website under retreats. So if any of this sounds like something you're needing and you're wanting greater guidance in how to journey forward to your freedom, your independence, your autonomy, to live the life you are meant to live, to break free from what's holding you back, whether it's those habits, those patterns, those mindsets, those thoughts, those emotions, those anxieties, those toxic relationships or work environments or unskillful parenting, whatever it is, this framework is going to help you get there, and I'm here to guide you through it. So if you have questions, if you need some greater further guidance, please reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Joree Rose, and also on Facebook as well. And again, if this is something you're needing right now to work harder on, to work towards, then join me on the retreat. This is what we're going to be doing. And it's all based on how to develop greater self-compassion, because it is when we can believe in our own selves and our own worth and to be our own best friend and greatest cheerleader. When we have that energy within us, that's when we create change, and that's where we become who we are meant to be. And that is what I am really taking to on this Independence Day, is really celebrating my independence, my growth, my autonomy, my freedoms, and not just to be who I am, but to help others to get there as well. And this does not mean that you can't stay deeply connected in relationship. It's not about being an island. It's not about being alone. It's about being free in your own mind and being free in your own heart, to trust in yourself and in your process, to believe in your own worth, and to break free from the expectations and the shoulds that aren't working for you anymore. So thanks for tuning in. I hope that you had a wonderful 4th of July. And as you listen to this, it will have been a couple of days past. So, or who knows, maybe you'll be listening to this far into the future. But, I'd like to celebrate these tools all the time. So happy independence, happy freedom, happy autonomy, happy growth. And this is all about what the journey forward is all about.
To continue your journey forward, find Joree Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat, visit her at joreerose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.